This is lecture 45. So as already we have started on the network synthesis, and there we are seeing that if I want to synthesize any network, what condition I should check it out. Means I should know whether can I synthesize a network or not. So for that there are the realizability test called causality and stability. We seen how can we check it out, the causality in time domain as well as in frequency domain. Similarly for stability also we seen in time domain that will be bounded input bounded output, or in frequency domain that all the poles will lie on the left hand side of S plane, or the poles may be simple pole or it may be the pole at origin, but it has to be simple, not multiple. Okay, and in order to test that we should have the Hurwitz polynomial, and how to test the Hurwitz polynomial, that also we have seen. Okay, so what will be the conditions, or what will be the conditions for the Hurwitz polynomial? That the polynomial is real if your S is real, that variable is real. This is first condition, and second condition is that the roots of the polynomial must have to lie on the left hand side of S plane or on j omega axis, which will be simple. Okay, and also we have seen the properties of the Hurwitz polynomial, and the properties were, the first property was that if I have the polynomial that is p of s, which is a raised to n s raised to n, like a1s plus a0, so there should not be any missing coefficient between a1 with a0. This first property. Okay, then second property we say that except the even or odd polynomial. Okay, there should not be any missing term between an with a0 except even or odd polynomial. Second property we said that if both the even and odd polynomials of the Hurwitz polynomial if the polynomial is Hurwitz, then both even and odd must have roots on j omega axis only. And if PS is either even or odd, then roots, as we said, that lie on the imaginary axis. The next property is that if I'll take the continued fraction expansion. So for that, what I have a polynomial, so that polynomial you make it as the even polynomial and odd polynomial, and then divide even polynomial by odd polynomial or odd polynomial by even polynomial, and then find out the continuous fraction expansion. Okay, which is say m of s over n of s. Its continuous fraction expansion will be q1 plus 1 over q2 plus 1 over quotient 3 plus like this q4, that way till you have to do till you will get the remainder as 0. Okay, and then check it out that if all the quotients are positive, then it's Hurwitz. If one more thing, that if it is abruptly the discontinued, means suddenly suppose the abruptly terminated, then what will happen, then that also we have to check it out whether whether it is Hurwitz polynomial or not. Okay, and generally what is to happen, if even though it has been terminated, but there may be the problem that the multiple pole may lie on the imaginary axis. Okay, so then we have taken one or two examples. Again, let me take it one or two examples on finding out the Hurwitz polynomial. So next example is, suppose my polynomial p of s is s raised to 7 plus s raised to 6 plus 2s raised to 5 plus s raised to 4 plus 4s cube plus 8s square plus 8s plus 4. So from here what I will do, I will separate the even polynomial and odd polynomial. So my even polynomial is, say this is 2, for example, 2s raised to 6 plus s raised to 4 plus 8s square plus 4, and odd polynomial is s raised to 7 plus 2s raised to 5 plus 4s cube plus 8s. Now what I am observing, that there is a difference between the highest power of odd to even power is at most 1. It should not be more than 1 also. Okay, otherwise there will be multiple poles. So what I will do now, here I will divide numerator by denominator, and which will be like s raised to 7, okay, plus 2s raised to 5 plus 4s cube plus 8s divided by 2s raised to 6 plus s raised to 4 plus 8s square plus 4, right? Now you apply the continued fraction expansion on this. So this will be s raised to 7 plus 2s raised to 5 plus 4s cube plus 8s, and this is divided by 2s raised to 6 plus s raised to 4 plus 8s square plus 4. Okay, so let us do the continued fraction expansion. So it will be 2s raised to 6, so it become s by 2, so it will be s raised to 7. I have solved it, so I will directly writing it. Okay, so it will be 1 by 2 s raised to 5, so it is s raised to 5 plus 4 s cube plus 2s. Okay, it will be 1 by 2, and then this will be vanishing, so now it will be 3 by 2 s raised to 5, 4s cube also has been vanished, plus 6s. Okay, so again you see there is a missing term in odd polynomial also. So let us see whether it will be terminating or not. Okay, so what will happen now? This dividend will be now 2s raised to 6 plus s raised to 4, 8s square plus 4. Okay, so again if I divide, it will be 4 by 3s. So if it is a 4 by 3s, it will be 2s raised to 6 plus 8s square. Okay, and this will also vanished. So what is remaining term now? It will be s raised to 4 plus this also cancelled, so plus 4, and this will be 3 by 2 s raised to 5 plus 6s. So if I divide that is this way, so it will be 3 by 2s, so it is 3 by 2 s square plus 6s. Okay, so you say that this has been terminated. Okay, and what, yeah, I got it here s raised to 4 plus 4. Okay, so what is the continued fraction expansion here? S by 2 plus 1 by 4 by 3s plus 1 by 3 by 2s, and then terminated. Okay, so now if you see this s square plus 4, which again can be factored as s square plus 2s plus 2 and s square minus 2s plus 2. Okay, so this can be factored, and you can see that there are the missing term, that is s raised to 4 plus 0 s square plus 4. So this is missing term, so ultimately the poles will lie on the right hand side of s plane. Here also the missing term is there, that's why it will lie on the right hand side of s plane roots, and hence this is not a Hurwitz polynomial. Okay, so conclude that this is not Hurwitz polynomial. Then next example, because there should not be again missing terms in even and odd also. Okay, next example, let us check it out. P of s will be s raised to 4 plus s cube plus 2s square plus 3s plus 2. So separate the even part and odd part, so it will be s raised to 4 plus 2s square plus 2, and odd part will be s cube plus 3s. So I'll divide s raised to 4 plus 2s square plus 2, then it is s cube plus 3s, so divided by this, so it will be now s, it will become s raised to 4 plus 3s square, this will vanish, this is minus s square plus 2. Okay, s square plus 3s, see here negative sign comes, so ultimately quotient will be negative now, so it will be minus s cube it will be, and this will be minus 2s, so this will vanish, so it will become 5s, then it is minus s square plus 2. Okay, so it is minus 1 by 5s, so it is minus s square. Okay, so this will cancel, it is plus 2, so this will be plus 2, again it is divided by 5s, so it is 5 by 2s, which will be 5s, and this is 0. So what is continued fraction expansion here? It will be s plus 1 by minus s plus minus plus 1 by minus 1 by 5s plus 1 by 5 by 2s. I observe that this quotient is a negative, that's why this is not Hurwitz polynomial. Okay, so again quotient should not be negative. Fine. The next is, now here what we observe, that in polynomial we had the even part also as well as the even odd component also, but if suppose in any polynomial is given to you, say any p of s, and in that suppose there will be only either even polynomial or odd polynomial, then what to do? So okay, so if this is the case, suppose I have the odd polynomial like s raised to 7 plus 3s raised to 5 plus 8s cube plus let's say s. So in this situation I have to check it out whether it is Hurwitz polynomial or not. So you just use the content fraction expansion, and for that I need one more thing, right? So what to do, you just take it the prime of it, that is p dash of s, which will be 7s square plus 15s raised to 4 plus 24s, okay, 24s square, and this is 0, and then divide p of s by p dash of s, so do the continued fraction expansion, and if the quotient is positive, then you say that this is your Hurwitz polynomial, otherwise not. Okay, so this way you can check it out, the Hurwitz polynomial. Okay, now next we'll see the positive real function. So here now we'll see what is basically positive real function. Okay, then what are the properties of positive real function and what is the testing of PRF. Okay, so these three things we'll see. So basically this PRF, that is called a positive real function. Let me write first. Positive real function. This is positive. Okay. So this positive real function I can write PRF or simple PR. Okay. So these positive real functions are important basically because they represent the physically realizable driving point impedances. Okay, so the definition of PRF is that the function is said to be PRF if the following two conditions are satisfied. One is the fs is real when s is real. Okay, this is first condition, and the second condition is that real part of f of s, this has to be greater than or equal to 0 if real part of s is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so what does it mean? Basically the real part of f of s is greater than or equal to 0 if when the real part of s is greater than or equal to 0. So also again it may tell f of s also has to be rational. Okay, so this basically, what is it? This is basically the mapping from S to Fs. Okay, this already we know, Fs is real when S is real, but now here this is different property now. Real part of f of s has to be greater than or equal to 0 if real part of s is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so for this is basically mapping. So what it says that suppose I have the plane, complex plane, which will be sigma plus j omega. So I have this point, so a real part of s which is a sigma 0. So and if I'll get it f of s. Okay, this is f of s plane, which is real part, and this is imaginary part. So what will happen with f of s? F of s also has to be real. Okay, and this has to be greater than or equal to 0. So this will be f of sigma 0. Okay, so if your function is PR, then what will happen? Point on positive real axis of the S plane is will map onto a point on f of sigma 0. Okay, which must be also on the positive real axis of the plane. Okay, or let's say point, any point in this S, suppose this point is SI, so this point also which is in the right half plane, which also map onto a point f of SI. Let me write, this point is my f of SI, okay, which will be also in the right half of Fs plane. So meaning that the real part of Fs is greater than or equal to 0 if the real part of S is greater than or equal to 0. It is consequence that the real part of Ffs is greater than or equal to 0 for positive real function. It means the right half of the S plane maps onto the right half of PS plane. Okay, example, if you see, so for example my Fs is PR, for example Fs is say R, so it is obviously positive real function because Fs is real. Okay, Fs is real when S is real, and also Fs here R is real and positive, and Fs if it is impedance, then R is a resistance. Okay, That's why it is simply PRF, because real part, this is only the real part of it, okay, which is obviously greater than or equal to 0 only. Then next, if I'll say the function is SL, okay, so here also S I can write sigma plus j omega into L, which will be sigma L plus j omega, right? So if real part of S, that is 6, this is sigma L is greater than or equal to 0, then obviously real part of f of S is also greater than or equal to 0. This is because L is the impedance, so this is obvious, okay. Third is that if my Fs is, let's say, third situation I'll tell, if my Fs is K by S, capacitance, okay, and assume that K is real and positive, okay. So is this PR? Yeah, this is also PR, because when S is real, here Fs is also real. How? That is, let me write, S will be what? Sigma plus j omega, and that can be solved as, you separate a real part and imaginary part by multiplying with the complex conjugate, sigma minus j omega, sigma minus j omega, so it will be K into sigma minus K into j omega divided by sigma square plus omega square, and this will be sigma square plus omega square. This is minus sign will be here, okay, fine. So now if I am saying this is real part of S, so what is the real part of S? This is my real part of S, this is my imaginary part of S. So if this is greater than 0, means sigma is greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0, then what will happen? Real part of f of S is also greater than or equal to 0, okay. So it will always be greater than 0, hence your function f of S is positive real, okay. So if Fs is impedance, then its corresponding this K by S will be acting as a capacitor, it will be 1 by K farad, okay. So thus we can see that the basic this basic passive impedances are always PRF, and hence the basic admittances will also be PRF, that is Y of S will be conductance, this is PR, Y of S is equal to K into S, that is capacitance, this is also PR. If Y of S, I will write K upon S as an inductor, this is also PR, okay. So with this, what we can do, we can conclude that all the driving point impedances of the passive network must be PR, okay. Also, if suppose I have a network, okay, this is the passive network, okay, and this current is flowing in it, and suppose this is my driving point impedances Z1 of S, okay, and suppose I'll give the sinusoidal input, and I'll calculate the average power which has been dissipated by the passive network. So what will be happening with average power? I would like to calculate which has been dissipated by passive network. So it will be generally half into real part of impedance, okay, Z1, Z1 I will, so Z1 I will give here, Z1 of j omega, okay, half I square R, so this will be magnitude of I square, okay, and obviously this is always greater than or equal to 0, okay, and we know that your reactances will not absorb the power, it is only the resistances or real part of the impedance or the conductance, impedance or the admittance will only dissipate the power, okay, they are only dissipate the power, and that's why I have taken real part of the admittance, okay, and I square is always greater than or equal to 0, so real part also Z1 of j omega will also be greater than 0, so it means here S, real part of S is greater than equal to 0, so real part of Zi of j omega is also greater than or equal to 0, means what? Your average power is also positive, okay. So it means Zi of j omega, or if I write Zi of S, no, so this is not Zi of S, so this will be Zi of sigma plus j omega, okay, real part of Zi of sigma plus j omega. So also we can conclude that if Zi of S is a PRF, Zi of S plus alpha will also be PRF, okay. For example, if I have RL circuit, its impedance is Z of S, a driving point impedance is suppose SL plus R. Now I will try to find out what is the real part of S here. So it will be sigma plus j omega into L plus R, so which will be L sigma plus j omega L plus R, which will be R plus L sigma, okay, plus here j omega. So in this case, what is the real part? Real part is R plus L sigma, and when R plus sigma is greater than or equal to 0, obviously real part of z of s will also be greater than or equal to 0. Similarly, if I have z of s, which will be 1 over SL plus R, so here also I can write 1 over S will be sigma plus j omega L plus R. I will separate the real and imaginary part, so it will be sigma L plus R plus j omega L. Then we will separate real and imaginary part, so it will be sigma L plus R over sigma L plus R square plus omega square, and this is minus j omega L over sigma L plus R square plus omega square. Okay, so this is always greater than or equal to 0, because it is always non-negative, because the real part of s is non-negative, hence real part of z of s will also be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so with this we can say that all the driving point impedances will be always PRs. Okay, now with this, next what we'll do, we will see the properties of PR. Okay, so let me write the properties of PR or positive real function. So first property is that if Fs is PR, okay, then 1 upon Fs is also PR. Okay. As suppose z of s I am saying SL plus R, then what about 1 over Zs? It will be 1 over Zs will become 1 over SL plus R. So here also we can say that the real part of z of s is also real. It means that in circuit theory application, if driving point impedance, that is z of s, is PR, so driving point admittance is also PR. That's why if f is PR, then 1 by f is also PR. Okay. The next property is that this is PR, so this is also PR. Okay. The next property is that sum of PR functions is also PR. For example, if I have f1, this is PR, f2 is also PR. So if I'll do the sum of f1 on f2, this will also be positive real functions. For example, why? Because generally in circuit theory applications, if two impedances Z1 and Z2 are connected in series, okay, obviously Z1 will be function of S. Okay, so maybe SL plus R plus 1 over S like this. So if two impedances are connected in series, and then what will happen? Sum of impedances will be Z1 plus Z2. Okay, so obviously if Z of S is PR, then Z1 plus Z2 is also the PR, and similarly this is true for admittances also, which will be in parallel form. Okay, this second property. But what about f1 minus f2? That we have to calculate. Okay, for example, if I am saying fs is 1 over s, not 1 over s, I'll say this is SL minus say SK minus 1 over minus K over S, or simply S minus 1 over S to be simplified. So let us check it out whether it is PR or not. So check it out for the real part of S. So it will be sigma plus j omega. What about here? It will be sigma plus j omega. Separate the real and imaginary parts. So here sigma plus j omega minus 1 over sigma. So it will be sigma over sigma plus omega square. Okay, and this is minus j omega over sigma plus sigma square omega square. Now combine the real and imaginary parts, so it will be sigma minus sigma upon sigma square plus omega square is real part of S, plus j omega minus omega upon sigma square plus omega square is the imaginary part of S. Okay, now see, real part of S, if it is greater than 0, okay, sigma is greater than 0, is it necessary that real part of f of s will be greater than 0? Not necessary, because real part of f of s may be negative, okay, when the sigma upon sigma square plus omega square will be greater than sigma. Okay, so when sigma it will be less than sigma upon sigma square plus omega square, then your f of s will not be PR. Okay, because fs will become negative here, real part of fs will become negative, and hence it will not satisfy the PR condition. That's why f1 from here we can conclude f1 minus f2 not necessarily PR. Okay, similarly true for f1 into f2 also, it will be also not necessarily PR, and f1 by f2 is also not necessarily PR. Only f1 plus f2 will be definitely PR. Third property says that the poles and zeros of the given the function, if it is a PR, then cannot have the positive real part. Okay, it means that they cannot lie on the right hand side of S plane, otherwise network will become unstable. Okay, so poles and zeros, no poles and zeros on right hand side of S plane. This is third property for PR. Fourth property, that the poles which will lie on the j omega axis, that is only simple poles, okay, with positive real positive residues, real positive residues can exist on j omega axis. This is the fourth property. What does it mean? If I have the simple pole, f of s will be equal to 1 over s square plus say omega I square into some denominator. So if I write its partial fraction, it will become s plus j omega I, and it will be k naught complex conjugate of s minus j omega I. Okay, so this will be simple pole. So the function will be PR if and only if this k naught will be real and positive. Okay, k0 must be real positive. Okay. Otherwise what will happen, there may be the multiple poles lie on the imaginary axis, then system will become unstable. So the condition is that there has to be simple pole with positive and real residues. Okay. Fifth property says that it is known that poles and zeros of the PRF are real, okay, or occurring conjugate pair always. Okay, so poles and zeros occurs in conjugate pair always. Why it is? Because as we know that the poles and zeros of a network function are the function of elements in the network, okay, or in the circuit, and as the elements themselves are real, so there cannot be complex poles or zeros without conjugate, because if there will not be conjugate pair, then what would have been happened, you will get it the imaginary values, right? And the imaginary values you will get, it means that there will be imaginary kind of elements which doesn't exist. Okay, so if there will not be complex, there will not be conjugate pair, then what has to be there? There has to be imaginary elements, which is not possible in circuit theory application, because all the elements are real. Okay, means R, L, C all will be real values. Okay, so hence poles and zeros must be complex conjugate pair, or must be in conjugate pair. Then sixth property says that the highest power of numerator and highest power of denominator, they must differ at most by unity. Suppose m is the degree of numerator and n is the degree of denominator. Okay, so m either should be equal to n, or m should be equal to n minus 1, or m should be equal to n plus 1. Both of them must differ by at most unity. Okay, if it will be more than 1, we know that there will be definitely multiple poles lie on the imaginary axis. Seventh property, we can say that also the lowest power of numerator, this is about highest powers. Okay. Similarly, lowest power of the numerator and denominator also may differ by at most unity. Okay, and if this is the case, then this prevent the possibility of multiple zeros or multiple poles at s is equal to 0. Okay, So basically lowest power of numerator and lowest power of denominator must differ by 1. If this is the case, then it will prevent the possibility of the multiple poles or zeros at origin or at s is equal to 0. For example, or say lowest power, I will write m1, lowest power of numerator, n1 say lowest power of denominator. So again this should be equal to either m1, n minus 1 or n plus 1, at most differ by 1. Why it is? Because otherwise there will be multiple pole. For example, s square plus 3s plus 2, here s square, so is that s raised to 0, this is 2, so there is a difference of 2. It means that 2 poles lying on origin, and if I'll take the inverse, it will become t, and obviously the output will be unbounded. Okay, so this is 7th property. So from this here, whatever the properties we have seen, we observe that these are necessary properties but not sufficient. Okay, so what I have to do? So now I have to check it out that is there any necessary and sufficient condition in order to say that my function is PR. Okay, so this we will say now necessary and sufficient. Oh, what are the necessary and sufficient conditions for PR? Okay, or we will say how can we test the PR? Okay, so this is basically testing of PR. So first is that we will say for the testing of positive real function f of s, your function must have no poles in RHS. Okay, no poles in RHS. And how can we test that? So that for the testing we used to use the Hurwitz polynomial. Okay, and this condition can be checked out using Hurwitz polynomial. Okay, so suppose I have a network function which is given to me and I have to find out whether they have the poles on right hand side or not. So what I'll do, I'll check it out the denominator of my function. If fs is emittance, then I have to check it out numerator as well as denominator also. Driving point emittance, then I have to check it out the numerator and denominator also. But let us find out if I have a network function where I got it n of s and d of s, then I will use the Hurwitz polynomial. And how to check it out that your d of s you convert it into even power of s and odd power of s, then do the continuous fraction expansion either m by n or n by m. Check it out the continuous fraction expansion. Okay, then what will happen if all the quotients will be positive, then it satisfies the Hurwitz polynomial. If not, it will not be Hurwitz polynomial. If it terminates prematurely, then you check it out the divisor whether there is any missing term or not. If there is a missing term, again this is not Hurwitz polynomial. If there is not a missing term, then that is Hurwitz polynomial, but you can say that okay, there will be the pole on the imaginary axis. Okay, this is first testing. Second testing, you can check it out that fs have only simple poles on j omega axis. Okay, simple poles on j omega axis. Okay, and simple poles has to be real and with real and positive residues. Okay, so simple pole, whatever you will get it, that will be on j omega axis. You find out the residues using the partial fraction expansion and check it out. If they are real and positive, then okay, then PR condition will be satisfied. For example, suppose I have the poles at plus j omega n and minus j omega n. So find out the partial fraction expansion for it. So it will be k1 over s plus j omega n plus k1 conjugate of s minus j omega 1. So if you solve, it will be k1s minus j omega k1 plus, say if I am saying k1 is equal to k1 conjugate. Okay, So it will be residues when and only when k1 will be equal to k1 conjugate. Okay, so k1s will be equal to minus j omega k1 plus k1s plus j omega 1 k1 over s square plus omega 1 square. So this and this will cancel. So what is remaining here? It will be 2k1s over s square plus omega 1 square. Okay, so if you found the residue and if is k1 is a positive and real, then fs is satisfied. Okay, means your fs satisfy means fs will be satisfying the condition of PR. Okay, third condition is that the real part of f of j omega has to be greater than or equal to 0. Third condition is that real part of f of j omega has to be greater than or equal to 0 for all omegas. This is also very important property. So in this, what we have to do, basically we must have to find out what is the real part of f of j omega, and we have to find out from this original f of s. So basically original f of s, I have two polynomials p of s divided by q of s. Then what I will do, I will try to find out the real part of f of s into real and imaginary. So for that, let me divide this p of s into even polynomial of s and odd polynomial of s divided by q of s, also divided into even polynomial s and odd polynomial s. Okay, so this is even and this is odd. Similarly, this is even and this is odd. Okay, and then try to solve. So I will not use now s, I will directly write. So m1 and n1, basically these are the functions of s. So m2 plus n2, you multiply with m2 minus n2 with m2 minus n2. So it will be now m1 m2 minus m1 n2 plus n1 m2 minus n1 into n2, and divided by what it will be? It will be m2 square minus n2 square. Okay, so now you look at carefully what will be m1 m2. This is m1 is even, m2 was even, so if you multiply even with even, this will be even. M1 is even, this is odd, so if you multiply, this will be your resultant odd. This is n1 is odd, m2 is even, so this resultant is odd. Here n1 is odd, n2 is odd, n1 is odd, n2 is odd. If you multiply, this will be even. Okay, so now what will I will take it out the real even and odd part separately. So I will get even part as m1 m2 minus n1 n2 divided by m2 square minus n2 square, plus I will get what I will get n1 m2 minus m1 n2 divided by m2 square minus n2 square. So this will be even part of f of s and this will be odd part of f of s. Okay, so now if you substitute s is equal to j omega, then what will happen? Your f of j omega will be now real part of f of j omega and it will be imaginary part of f of j omega. Okay, and how will it be real part? This will be basically even part. So s square plus s raised to 4. So if I put it s is equal to j omega, this will be giving me real part, and this odd is nothing but your imaginary part. Okay, so your real part of f of j omega will be the even part of f of s, and imaginary part of this will be the odd part of f of s. Okay, so now where we are interested for real part of f of j omega, and to check it out whether real part of f of j omega is greater than or equal to 0 or not for all omega. So this can be done using m1 m2 minus n1 n2 divided by m2 square minus n2 square. Okay, so now this is all in terms of s. Okay, so first let us check it out for the denominator part. So what is the denominator part? M2 square minus n2 square, I mean m2 of s square minus n2 of square, which again I can write as m2 plus m2 of s plus n2 of s into m2 of s minus n2 of s, right? Which is again this, I'll get it one polynomial in q of s, and this will be in q of minus s. Now let me evaluate at s is equal to j omega. So what I'll get it q of j omega into q of minus j omega, and you see that q of minus j omega, the conjugate of the q of j omega, and then what will be the magnitude? It will be magnitude square. Okay, and you can say that this magnitude square will be always greater than 0, not equal to 0, but always greater than 0. If it is 0, then function doesn't exist. Okay, so no need to test for m2 square minus n2 square. Okay, so q of j omega square is always greater than 0. So this issue solved. Now what remains? The remaining thing is now m1 m2, that is m1 of s into m2 of s, or m1 of j omega, m2 of j omega, you can call it that, n1 of s into n2 of s. Okay, and this I have to evaluate now at s is equal to 0. Okay, so for checking that I have to test now this, and let me evaluate at s is equal to j omega. And what we said, that this will be now even polynomials. This is also even and this is also even, so there will not be s, always there will be s square now. So let me evaluate that s square will be equal to what? Minus omega square, right? Means what? Now I'll get it one polynomial, say I will call a, which will be in terms of omega square, because all are even parts. Okay, so here you will get it m1 m2 minus n1 n2, and this I will evaluate at s is equal to minus omega square, and then I will check it out, that I will ask myself that a of omega square, is it greater than or equal to 0 for all omega or not. Okay, so if this is the case, then if this is greater than or equal to 0 for all omega, then what we can say, okay, this PRF is satisfied. Again, for simplicity, what I can do, this omega square I can replace by simple x, and I can check it out for a of x. So a of x is greater than or equal to 0 or not for all x which will be greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so this a of x will also be now m1 m2 minus n1 n2, and there where I am evaluating s square is equal to minus x. Okay, so this simply omega square has been replaced by x to have a simplified form. And now check it out for this, and this is what we have to test for the function to say positive real. Okay, so with this we stop here. We'll continue this in the next class. Thank you very much.